Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Aaron, and for the last 11 years I was married to a woman named Mandy. If you had asked me a few years ago, I would have told you we had a solid marriage, a partnership, a life built together. Turns out I was wrong. So damn wrong. Mandy had a plan. She thought she had everything figured out. She was getting ready to leave me, probably expecting to take half of everything I had worked for. What she didn't know was that I was already 2 steps ahead. Looking back, things weren't always bad between us. In the beginning, Mandy was caring, affectionate, and proud to be with me. I genuinely thought we were in love. But over the years, something shifted. It was subtle at first, little comments here and there. "You know, you could try to dress a little sharper like Daniel at work," she'd say, eyeing my usual jeans and t-shirt. Or, "Melissa's husband surprised her with a trip to Europe." Can you imagine? Some men just know how to treat their wives. It was always someone else, someone better, someone who wasn't me. No matter what I did, it was never enough. If I worked late, I was neglecting her. If I came home early, I lacked ambition. If I saved money, I was cheap. If I spent money, I was irresponsible. I put up with it, though, not because I was weak, but because of our son, Noah. I wanted him to have a stable home, a family. I convinced myself that if I could just endure it, things might get better. But then something changed. At first, it was small, so small that I barely noticed it. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my phone when my son, Noah, walked up to me with that hopeful little smile he always had when he was about to ask for something. "Dad, can we get some candy?" His voice was bright, excited. I smirked and shook my head. "Buddy, you know candy isn't good for you all the time. Too much sugar." It was something I had told him 100 times before. Normally he'd pout or try to convince me with some clever reasoning. But this time he just shrugged and said, "Uncle Brian always gets me candy." Everything in me went still. I kept my expression neutral and forced a chuckle. "Oh yeah? Who's Uncle Brian?" Noah didn't even hesitate. "Mommy's friend. He comes when you're at work or when you go on trips. He buys me candy and cookies." My grip on my phone tightened. A kid Noah's age doesn't lie about things like that, especially not with so much casual honesty. In his mind, there was nothing wrong with what he was saying. I forced a smile. "That's nice of him." Noah nodded and ran off to play. I just sat there frozen. Mandy had a friend who came over when I wasn't home. I didn't ask her about it right away. Instead, I did something better. I started watching her. That's when I noticed things I should have seen earlier. She was leaving the house a lot more than usual, always running errands but somehow gone for hours. She'd say she was stopping by the store, but it never made sense how long she was gone. Plans with friends she never mentioned before started coming up more often. And every time I asked simple questions, "Where did you go?" or "Why were you gone so long?" she'd get defensive, as if I had no right to even ask. Then there was her phone, always on silent, always face down on the table, always with her, even in the bathroom. And if it rang while we were in the same room, she'd pick it up fast and walk away before answering. We never had secrets before, but now it felt like she was hiding an entire life from me. Then there was her attitude. It was like she had flipped a switch. Every little thing I did irritated her. She picked fights over the smallest things. And I started noticing a pattern. These arguments always happened right before she needed to get some air, or had to step out. It was like she was looking for an excuse to leave the house, and the easiest way to do that was by making me the bad guy. At first I told myself she was just stressed. Maybe she was going through something. But after what Noah had said, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. And suddenly, all the little red flags I had ignored before started making sense. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. A few days passed and I kept watching, waiting for something, anything, that would confirm my suspicions. And then it happened. I had taken the day off from work to run some errands, just the usual stops at the bank, the dry cleaners, and the grocery store. That's when I ran into Raymond, an old friend from college. "Aaron," he called out, clapping me on the shoulder. "Man, I haven't seen you in ages. How's life treating you?" We caught up for a few minutes talking about work and family. Then, out of nowhere, He said something that made my stomach turn. "Hey, by the way, I saw Mandy yesterday. She was heading into that health clinic over on Fifth Avenue. I was kinda far away, so I didn't get a chance to say hi. Everything okay?" I felt my whole body tense. I forced a small laugh. "Oh yeah, she just went for a checkup or something." Raymond nodded. "Ah, cool. Just wanted to check." I forced a casual goodbye and walked away, but my mind was racing. Mandy went to a health clinic? Why? She never mentioned a doctor's appointment. And if it was a simple checkup, why not tell me? I felt that same uneasiness from before creep up my spine. Something wasn't right. I waited. I paid attention. 2 days later, Mandy told me she had some errands to run. "Just some quick things to take care of," she said, grabbing her purse. I smiled and nodded, but I didn't believe her. So I decided to go into work later than usual and followed her instead. And guess where she went? The same health clinic. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the wheel, watching as she walked inside. A million thoughts ran through my mind. Was she sick? Did she have something serious? Was she hiding a medical condition? Or was it something else? I waited. She was inside for almost an hour. When she finally left, she didn't seem sick. She didn't look worried. She just walked back to her car and drove home like nothing had happened. That evening when I got home, I asked her casually, "So, how was your day?" She told me she had gone shopping, grabbed lunch, nothing important. But she didn't mention the clinic. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That was the moment I knew. She was hiding something. And I didn't have to wait long to find out what. Later that night, after Mandy went to take a shower, I did something I had never done before. I searched her purse. I knew it was wrong. I knew that if I was at the point where I had to spy on my own wife, then things were already broken beyond repair. But at that moment, I didn't care. I had to know. My hands were slightly unsteady as I unzipped the bag, my pulse thudding in my ears. I sifted through the usual clutter: receipts, lipstick, a pack of gum, things I had seen 100 times before. Nothing unusual. For a brief second, I thought maybe I had let my paranoia get the best of me. And then I saw it. A receipt for an STD test. My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at it, my hands numb. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. Why would she need this? We hadn't been intimate in months. There was only one explanation. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting into knots. Every suspicion, every red flag, every uneasy feeling I had pushed aside over the last few weeks, it all crashed down on me at once. She was cheating on me. I forced myself to take slow, deep breaths, willing the rising anger inside me to stay controlled. I couldn't react now. Not yet. I carefully put everything back exactly as I had found it, making sure there were no signs that I had even touched her things. Then, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, my mind still reeling. The doubt was gone. I knew. But now, I needed proof. The next morning, I made a call. I contacted a private investigator. It took 3 days before he got back to me. 3 long, agonizing days where I had to pretend nothing had changed, where I had to look Mandy in the eye and act as if I wasn't already planning my next move. And when he finally returned with his findings, it confirmed everything. Mandy wasn't just cheating. She was brazen about it. The investigator sent me photos, clear, undeniable proof. Mandy and some guy, kissing in a parking lot, holding hands, getting into his car. Then, the final piece of evidence. A video of them walking into his house together. I felt sick. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This was an affair. And it had been going on for a while. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. There was one more thing I needed to do first. I went to a lawyer. I needed to protect myself, my assets, and most importantly, Noah. I wasn't about to let Mandy ruin everything I had built while she ran around with another man. I made my move, securing my finances and preparing for what was coming next. A few nights later, after yet another pointless argument, the moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. Mandy folded her arms, her voice sharp with frustration. "I want a divorce." She stood in front of me, arms crossed, her chin lifted like she was waiting for me to beg or panic. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, Okay. For the first time in years, I saw her expression falter. Her lips parted slightly, her eyes narrowing as if she wasn't sure she had heard me correctly. She blinked. That's it? I nodded. Yeah, if that's what you want. She hesitated, shifting her weight slightly, her confidence wavering. She had expected a fight, a back and forth, maybe even an argument about money. She probably thought I'd plead with her, demand to know why, ask her to reconsider. But what she didn't know was that I had already prepared for this moment before she even thought about leaving me. The next morning, before she could bring up splitting assets, my lawyer sent her the divorce papers. She was still in her robe when the envelope landed on the kitchen table with a soft thud. I stood by the coffee machine, my hand steady as I poured myself a cup, pretending to be indifferent. I could hear the faint rustling of paper as she tore it open, her eyes scanning the pages. The more she read, the more her expression changed. The arrogance disappeared first, then confusion set in, and finally, realization hit her like a brick. She wasn't getting alimony. She had no claim to half of my assets. I took a slow sip of my coffee, watching as she finally looked up at me, her face pale. Aaron, what is this? I set my cup down and met her gaze without hesitation. It's the divorce you wanted. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if searching for the right words but coming up empty. For the first time in a long time, she was speechless. I wish I could say she handled it with grace, but she didn't. At first, she acted like it didn't bother her, pretending this was all part of her plan. But when reality sank in, her confidence cracked. I had secured all my assets. The accounts were legally under Noah's name, structured as college savings and inheritance funds. Untouchable. The house wasn't in her name either. As far as the court was concerned, she had nothing left to take. That's when the panic set in. She stormed into the bedroom that evening, gripping the papers in her hands. You're screwing me over. I stayed calm. No, I'm just protecting myself. Her face turned red. I gave you years of my life and you're going to leave me with nothing? I raised an eyebrow. You gave me years? Funny. You seemed pretty busy giving someone else your time, too. She flinched. She knew. I knew. And now, there was no more pretending. She threw the papers down. You hired a PI, didn't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her hands clenched into fists. You set me up. I laughed. I didn't set you up, Mandy. You did that all by yourself. She glared at me. You're going to regret this. I smiled. I doubt it. After several months of legal battles, the final hearing arrived. Mandy walked into the courtroom with her usual confidence, still acting as if she had some control. She probably thought she'd find a loophole, some way to manipulate the system and walk away with something. But there was nothing left to take. The private investigator had done a thorough job. The evidence was undeniable. Photos, timestamps, even the clinic visit. There was no arguing her way out of this. But what sealed it wasn't just the affair. It was her neglect of Noah. I laid everything out in front of the court. The nights she left him home alone. The times she didn't come back until hours past bedtime. The way she had put her affair ahead of her own child, over and over again. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse for her, my lawyer revealed one final piece of evidence: the STD test results. Mandy had tested positive. The same test I had found in her purse, the one that made my stomach drop, was now sitting in front of the judge. It was indisputable proof of what she had been doing. I didn't need to say anything. The look on her face said it all. She never thought it would come out in court. But it did. When the ruling came down, I barely even reacted. Full custody was awarded to me. No weekends, no shared parenting, no back-and-forth arrangements. Mandy sat there, unmoving, as the weight of it sank in. She had lost. She wasn't walking away with a settlement. She wasn't walking away with our son. She was walking away alone. I wish I could say she learned her lesson, but she didn't. At first, she acted like it didn't bother her. But then, when reality set in, she started calling, texting. Long messages about how we had so many good years together, how she made a mistake, how Noah needed both of us. But where was that concern for Noah when she was sneaking around? Where was all that regret when she was lying to my face? I ignored her. She tried everything: guilt, fake remorse, even blaming me for not fighting for our marriage. But you can't fight for something the other person already set on fire. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. And even sorrier that I didn't let her walk away with the life she thought she deserved. Now, I'm free. Legally, mentally, emotionally, financially. I can finally focus on my son, on my future, on a life where I no longer have to walk on eggshells or wonder what lie I'm being told today. Mandy never loved me. She loved what I could give her. And when she thought she could throw me away and walk off with half my life, she learned the hard way that I was already 10 steps ahead. Thank you for watching.